All right, what's up guys? Today we are reviewing the Engage Pursuit Ultra MX. It has been 2 years since Engage updated the Pursuit line, and I think a lot of people have been waiting to see what they were gonna do with it. And when the Ultra got announced, there was a lot of questions about it because the marketing was extremely vague on what exactly it was. And as you can see, the design really did not change at all. So there's been a lot of questions. I've had the chance to go out and do a number of play sessions with it. So in this video, I'm gonna give you my full thoughts on what I think of the Ultra. In this video, we're gonna be looking at the Pursuit MX Ultra as well as the Ultra EX 6.0. I don't have all four, so those are gonna be my reference points for this video. Also, for future reference, because a bunch of you said for gameplay clips, it was a lot easier when I wore a bright colored shirt. I also got this very bright colored melon. So in gameplay clips, it should be a lot easier to spot me now. Ironically, the gameplay that we filmed for this review, I don't have the hat yet, so you won't see it. But in future videos, look for the orange hat and you'll know it's me. All right, so for the specs, it is $260, which is a pretty high asking price in this day and age. There are a lot of people who have pushed the $250 barrier. And honestly, I think it's fine for some paddles to be over that, but if you're gonna be over that, you need to have something good that you bring to the table. So we'll see how the price stands up. You can also get 20% off if you use code PBStudio on the Engage website. So check that out in the description and you can find the link there. But as far as the other specs go, we have the EX and the MX. If you don't know the difference between those, the EX is the 16:8 version, which is just the standard shape. The MX is the elongated 16.5. And then you also have the 6.0 and non-6.0 versions. The 6.0 is the 16mm version, while the non-6.0 is the 13mm version, or the power version of it. For the grip sizes, they did get a little bit bigger. For the 6.0 versions, they are now 4 3/8 inches, while the non-6.0 versions are 4 1/4 inches. And they are honestly pretty chunky grips for the 6.0 version. So if you're a female, I would be a little concerned about that because by the time you put an overgrip on it, it's probably gonna be 4.5, which is a pretty massive grip. So it's a little disappointing that they made them thicker. They also all have exposed polymer in them, which to be honest, if you are Engaged and you waited 2 years and you still didn't fix that when there are paddles that are $100 on the market, that is extremely disappointing. The grips honestly just feel cheap. They're not that great. Also, they're still using these bottom plumber caps, which don't matter to any of you, but when you're trying to film B-roll of a paddle, it just won't stand up. So that just irks me a little bit. Doesn't have anything to do with the paddle performance, but just a little annoying. So yeah, the exposed polymer is a big no-no for me and something that I really wish they would have fixed. If you look under a microscope, it's also not the same as typical raw carbon fiber. Old Engages were already like that. But again, if you put these under a microscope and compare, they don't look anything alike. You could probably figure that out just by touching it, but I thought I'd mention it in case it matters to some of you out there.
Nice try.
Got him.
Nice try.
He was asleep.
The next thing they mentioned in the marketing is they injected a composite material into the outer perimeter. My assumption would be that that is foam, since that is what everyone else is doing. I also talked to Engage and they said these paddles are not thermoformed. The marketing material kind of makes it look thermoformed, but it isn't. And I suppose we probably could have made the assumption that it at least wasn't what the new thermoforming is like, since it doesn't run all the way through the handle and cover the exposed polymer. So if you're wondering if it's thermoformed, straight from Engage, they said it's not. Now next on the list, they also talked about this counterbalance technology. Well, I was hoping something would be different, but we put these in the swing weight machine and honestly, the swing weights aren't that different. They're still on the heavier side, or at least the MX 6.0 is. And since I don't have all four, I got the other swing weights from Pickleball Effect. He said the MX 6.0 is 130, the MX is 115, the EX 6.0 is 118, and the EX is 110. All of those except for the MX 6.0 are pretty reasonable swing weights, but 130 is really heavy. I also put them through a balance test machine that I've recently been working on, and all of these are some of the highest balances or more head heavy paddles that I have seen on the market, and so were the previous Engages. So if you were hoping they were gonna be a lot lighter, that counterbalance technology claim doesn't seem to be holding up, at least with the balance machine that I'm using. Got him. All right, so the first thing I want to talk about with the new Ultras is the feel of them, because I think a lot of people are wondering, how much did it change? And sadly, or maybe not sadly, I don't know, depending on who you are, the feel really didn't change that much. The biggest thing that happened is that the Ultras, they just got softer. They don't hit harder than the originals, drastic, like, oh my gosh, this is way softer. But the original Pursuits were already very poppy in a good way. I actually think compared to their other raw carbon fiber paddles on the market, these set themselves apart because they were so poppy, unlike most raw carbon fiber paddles where they were very soft. The Ultras feel like they go backwards a little bit closer to a Gen 1 raw carbon fiber paddle. Still a little bit more poppy, but not nearly as poppy as the thermoformed and not quite as soft as the Gen 1. So if you were hoping there was more power, definitely not more power with these. And that the two I just ended up hitting were the Pursuit Ultra MX and the regular MX, and honestly, not a huge deal. The one thing I will say is I'll need to measure when I get home, but the original MX seems to have like a 4.125 inch grip circumference, because this one is definitely chunkier at 4.25. So if this small grip was appealing to you, that is gone on the new one. So just keep that in mind. All right, so the next thing I want to talk about is the spin, because I think that's one of the things everyone was hoping was upgraded with the new R210 carbon fiber, because one of the original complaints with the old Pursuits was that they just weren't that spinny. I think I clocked them on the best engages I was able to try for my spin test somewhere around the low 1500s, but I tried other engages that were much lower, and honestly, I think the quality control has just been hit or miss on that surface. So not 100% sure about that, but I've never seen great spin results with an engage. It's not that you can't get spin. I'm not trying to say that, but comparatively to something like a 6.0 double black diamond, a Pulsar, a Power Air, all of those, it just doesn't even come close. And unfortunately for the Ultras, it's the same or worse. I clocked these at 1300 RPM, and I believe Pickleball Effect was in a similar ballpark range. So essentially, it's unchanged. Now, while touching it with your hand, it feels much grittier. It's kind of hard to explain, but it almost feels like this painted texture. I don't really, kind of like on a wall or something. It's really hard to explain exactly what it feels like, but even when I was hitting them when I got them, I could tell right away I just wasn't getting the same spin. Roll volleys aren't the same, ground strokes and singles are definitely not the same, and I think it's best suited for someone who hits more flat. You know, you like to flick the ball at the net, you like to punch the ball, you drive very flat. I think that's who this would be for. And even after just a couple play sessions with these in the center of the sweet spot, I can already feel that the texture's wearing off. So this isn't gonna last. This is probably what I would say is similar to an original paint grit, kind of like the original Warrior, where it just doesn't last. So in terms of spin, this just isn't it. The feel of these is exceptional. I think they make one of the best feeling paddles on the market. It has one of the most satisfying ball pops off the face. That's the same with the Ultra and the previous ones. They just feel really good off the face. If a lot of more paddles could feel like that and have more power or maybe more control, it would be awesome. I think as far as feel goes, Engage nails that very, very well. Absolutely love how the paddles feel.
Don't even think about it. Hey, what are you doing? I couldn't read it.
All right, so we've already talked about the control is great, but honestly, I think one of the most overlooked things on the originals is just how poppy they were. Like I think today with even some of the power paddles out on the market, the original Pursuit MX still hits very hard. Like it has such a nice pop off the face. Like you can put plenty of power behind it. I think even when you compare it against some of the thermoform paddles today, I think those hit harder, but the Pursuit MX is not very far behind, and you have to remember that thing is 2 years old at this point. So the originals, honestly not bad. Again, I'm a little disappointed that the Ultras hit a little bit softer because so far it's essentially just a more control-oriented version of the original MX. And I think charging $40 more on top of a paddle that was already a little bit expensive, that gets a little tricky, right? Like, are you gonna pay $260 for a slightly more control-oriented paddle of the Ultra? Maybe, but I think for a lot of people that's not gonna be worth it. And in a day and age where more and more people want more and more power, I just think this feels a little bit backwards. All right, so my wrap-up statement on the Ultras is that I honestly just think they're kind of overpriced. We waited 2 years for not very much to change on these, and you have to ask yourself, at $260, what are you really paying for? And with Engage, I think you're partially paying for the name because it's made in the US, and also the lifetime warranty. And now a lifetime warranty holds a significant amount of weight. I think in a day and age where a lot of paddles are having breaking issues and companies have very short warranties, that's something that's very valuable. But is it $260 valuable, especially when there are other paddles that are cheaper and aren't breaking like a lot of these new thermoformed paddles? So I definitely think the price is not that great, and honestly, it just makes me think the Ultra stands for ultra overpriced, because $260, that's just a really big ask. I think a lot of people are already weary of that when a lot of better paddles are coming out for cheaper. So unless the price is something that is absolutely not a concern and you loved the original Pursuits and you just wanted one that's a little less poppy, then I think these fit the bill. But if that's not you, I wouldn't recommend looking into the Ultra. I actually think this existing makes the original Pursuit look like a better deal at $220. For $260, even at $220 after a discount code, I don't know about the Ultra. I think it's gonna come down to what you really want in a paddle. I don't think it's a bad paddle. I just think it's a really bad value in the market and doesn't bring a lot of new things to the table like we were hoping it would. So thanks for watching, guys. We'll catch you in the next one.